Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to today's Art to Finish live webinar demonstration series, specifically covering the Intellicut software for the MBM Aerocut Velocity and Aerocut Prime product line. This is the second or actually a third in a number of series that we provide that go through the finishing workflow of the included bundled software that comes with these devices. Each session, we go through the entire workflow from start to finish, starting with the software on a computer and then transitioning over to a live video feed of cutting the documents we create together. Also, each week, we select a specific topic to do a deep dive on, and today's topic will be the specific hardware capabilities of creating and ensuring that the documents cut precisely and appropriately. So configuring things like calibration, and also we want to go through connection, how the connection works and how to set that up. So we'll be doing more of a deep dive on the specific interfacing between the software and the machine, as well as a quick deep dive on how you can make minor adjustments to the calibration of the machine and the settings internally on the Aerocut to account for things like print spread, and shift of the paper that happens inherently during the printing process or the feeding of the paper process. So please keep a lookout from that. I do recommend watching previous sessions for different deep dives. Each week we go through the process a little bit differently to provide more information, specifically because we keep these recordings up and are viewable over time. Okay, I'm going to start again by doing a minor introduction and overview of how the software works and how it creates documents for the machine to give us a refresher, and then we'll go through the deep dive process. Intellicut software comes included with the purchase of the Aerocut Velocity and the Aerocut Prime at no additional price above the base price of the machine. It's not an add-on or optional add-on or a additional fee that you have to select when purchasing the machines. They come included with 1 year of annual licensing. So the purchase of both the Velocity and the Prime include the purchase price of the software, as well as 1 year of annual licensing from the day of installation, not when you purchase the machine, but actually when you install the software to ensure you get an entire year of software usage. This is an award-winning software. It's the first of its kind that takes an graphic design imposition tool, a print file creation tool, and repurposes it to be a simultaneously controller of the machine. It works through local area network. The machine itself has an Ethernet port on the back of it, which you can connect to the network, and that's something we'll be deep diving today on how you can set up a minor overview of how to ensure that you can set up that network connection between the Intellicut software on a network computer and an Aerocut in your office. So a nice advantage of these systems is that the computer does not have to be hardwired to the machine as competitive systems require. A lot of other machines in this space require that you actually purchase a machine specifically dedicated to the cutter, to the finishing equipment. It sits there dedicated, and it can only be used for that at that location for that purpose. This actually workflow opens up the possibilities by allowing any computer in the office, particularly graphic design or pre-press computer, to do their work as they normally would do at their desk and have all the information sent over from their graphic design workflow directly to the Aerocut system. It's a very unique take that makes the graphic design tool simultaneously act as a controller system for the machine. Here's a very, very brief diagram of what I just described. You can see on the bottom here, it starts with the Intellicut software. It simultaneously 2 and 3 happen at the same time. While you create your layout for your print file, it does its imposition and the variable data processing. It creates a print file, that's number 3, but it simultaneously programs the Aerocut template file into the Aerocut itself. Step 4, you take your print from the printer and walk it over the Aerocut, scan a barcode for the automated finishing workflow process. That is what we're going to look at in more detail in a second here, as how to set up that interface system. Before we do that, or as we do that, I'm also going to be demonstrating today 2 documents we're going to create together. We're going to create these print files from scratch, both a preset template that's already inside the memory of both the Intellicut and the Aerocut. We're going to create a print file using artwork for a business card. And then we're going to create another print file of a custom template that has not been programmed into the machine yet. We're going to create that for the first time. That's a creased table tent card. We're going to create a custom manuscript template, program the machine, and create a print file that way as well. And I'll show you how to do that in a minor overview. We're also going to talk about some tips and tricks on calibration of the device, as well as connection. I'm going to start now by talking about the connection. When you install Intellicut software, you're also simultaneously installing a utility zipped up called WizNet. That WizNet tool is provided for you in order to be able to connect to the device for the first time. It is on a network connection. As long as your network computer is able to find that device using WizNet, you have a connection that's available between the two devices without any IT restrictions blocking. And then you're able to program an available network IP address provided to you generally by your network administrator to program into the device. The device itself, as are most network connection devices, come with a default generic IP address in them already that is not compatible. That number will have to be changed to something that is available within your network. So simply speak with your network administrator, have them provide to you an IP address that's not currently utilized by a different device on your network, and then install the WizNet tool and use that tool to program that IP address into the machine. So you can do that by going to once you've installed Intellicut, go to the C drive, Program Files x86, Intellicut folder, and within that Intellicut folder is a zip file called WizNet, and it starts with WIZ. Extract that file, install the WizNet tool, open the WizNet tool up, and then you'll see on the right-hand side, this is what a WizNet tool looks like. You're going to press the search button down here, which would populate your boards list. Select the board that is brought up for you. Change the local IP address information, and press search again to save that information. I highly recommend going to lightrod.com, Learning Guides dropdown, and to the Intellicut section to download documentation you can share with your network administrator on more information on how to do this. But we did want to make sure that we went over this briefly for you. You will need to download the WizNet tool, have an IP address provided to you by your network administrator, and use the WizNet program to program that into the Aerocut. Once you do that, when we get into the Intellicut software, I will show you exactly how you take the IP address that you've associated to the machine and put that into Intellicut so that it can find the Aerocut automatically through the network. The other tip and trick we're going to go over today are factors that you can control on the Aerocut itself based on the calibration settings and the adjustment settings, as well as tips and tricks on how to properly feed in paper to account for problems that may occur due to print spread or to misalignment of the feeder. We actually wanted to just show this because it may be harder to see on camera, but symptoms that may occur that indicate to you that this is the problem are things that you can see here is misalignment or inconsistency with the placement on the side of the card, especially as it goes down the column. You'll see here it kind of shifts from card to card. It's very visible when you do cards that have a bleed edge strip, particularly in the vertical direction. That strip is on the side of the page, and you'll see as it goes down the column, it continues to shift further and further down. This should obviously be consistent throughout the entire stack, but in this case, we see that it has shifted inconsistencies that we see. This is two stacks. You see it goes all the way down and it goes back and all the way down again. If you see that problem occurring, particularly if it gets worse down the column, that's an indication that it's print spread is causing this issue, and the Aerocut has some adjustment capabilities to help you accommodate for the print spread on your digital printer. We'll go through that in detail. Another thing that you may notice is that the card gets closer or farther away from the edge of the page. The design is getting either closer and farther away from the edge of the page as it goes down the column. As you see here, this little dot has no space from the edge, but as we go down the page, there's more and more white space away from the dot on the edge of the cut. If you see that being an issue where it's from left to right spread, that's generally a problem with skewing occurs by the alignment of the tray, and we'll go through that together as well today on how you can make adjustments to accommodate and fix that issue. Awesome. That's my portion of the deep dive today. We're going to now go into the Intellicut software to create our 2 jobs that we're going to do a number of things with these jobs. We're going to send them we're going to create a PDF after adding our artwork, use the imposition capabilities to create that PDF. We're going to send that PDF to the printer. And then in the case of the custom template, we're also going to program the Aerocut over the network automatically. So I'm going to open up Intellicut software. Before I go into creating those jobs, I'm going to select the Aerocut Manager button. This Aerocut Manager button is the best way to ensure that you are able to enter in the IP address for the cutter. I like this management button because it also at any time gives us the ability to query the Aerocut and to see all of the manusets jobs that are programmed into our machine and whether there's any vacant ones. But it also lets us enter in the IP address that we've been given and associated using the WizNet tool previously. So if this is your first time using an Aerocut or configuring an Aerocut to connect to the Intellicut software, simply select the Aerocut Manager button, and then you'll be able to enter in your IP address here and press connect. And if that connection was successful, it will say connected right here. All right, I'm going to go back into new job now, and we're going to create a preset template. Now, if you want more information on the different types of templates, how those work, how you can create your own in more detail, I do recommend watching our first and second session on the Intellicut for Aerocut software series for the Art to Finish series that is on our IntellicutLive.com website. Today, we're going to just be doing a minor overview of how that works. But essentially, we're going to be finding the paper size we're printing on, which today is 13 by 19 paper. We're going to finding the 2 by 3.5 business card double cut template. Now, as I select templates, you'll see that I get a preview window to just demonstrate to me where that is going to display on the page. And this is what this is the template I'd like to select. I have a number of preset templates that are available to me. I can also create custom templates and add to that library. Our imposition software has an unlimited amount of templates it can create at any time, and then you can store 100 custom templates of those simultaneously into the Aerocut's memory. I'm going to select next. I'm going to check bleed on as I create my PDF for printing. I'm going to press finish. Now I'm going to use import image. I'm going to find my business card artwork. And that's it. That's all I need to do in this case because this is a preset template. I can go into preview and position and make sure it looks correct. It has the barcode up top, the alignment mark. Everything looks perfect. I've got my bleed space turned on. I'm going to create my PDF. And now I'll simply send this PDF for printing, and that's all I need to do today. No communication was necessary whatsoever. As this is a preset template, it's already in the memory of the machine. So I simply send this to the printer, and that's it. Okay. Now we're going to create a custom manuset job. We're going to go to new job. We're going to go to custom template. This is a nice time to have the template preview window available and on your screen, because as we go through the template creation process, we will be wanting to have a visual overview of how that's going to look like on the screen as we make adjustments. Now, I am going to be selecting the Select from List button, especially because this really demonstrates further the direct communication capabilities, and I'll describe what happens as it reads here. The Aerocut, as I mentioned before, has 100 memory slots for custom templates at any given time. And we want to ensure that you're programming the job that you're creating at that specific moment into a slot that is not currently utilized, it's vacant, or into a slot that's overwriting a job that you're not going to be doing again. So by selecting Select from List, it uses that IP address connection that we talked about earlier, and it brings in for me all 100 templates, which slots are available, which slots are vacant, and the names of those that are taken. So I'm just going to simply select the slot that's vacant. And now I've done everything that's needed to ensure that when I program this job through the network, it will have the appropriate barcode and it will be programmed into available memory slot on the machine. We're going to now name the job. I like to name it based on the size of the paper I'm printing on and the size of the card that I'm cutting down to. In this case, I'm putting on 12 by 18 paper, and I'm creating a 5.25 by 4 creased card. So that will be text keyword searchable later. Well, this is a simplex job. We're going to do 12 by 18 paper, and our cut size is 5.25 by 4. Perfect. And I'm going to turn bleed on. And that's it. Now, what I was saying before is that we can very easily now make adjustments to how this is going to lay out visually. We can see exactly what it's going to look like. We get 8 up, and we only get 6 up on portrait or on landscape view. So portrait is what we're going to want to do. We could change the paper size and see if we could get more or less on the page. We have the same amount on 13 by 19. This is a really quick way to ensure visually that you're creating the most optimal in-position layout. This is at its core, our software is an in-position, high-end in-position tool with advanced variable data capabilities, and we give you all the advantages of those tools by ensuring that you very quickly are creating the most optimal layout that automatically meets the Aerocut specifications. We call that the Intellicut Intelligence, Aerocut Smart Layout Assistant. And so we can very quickly on a dime simply enter in the cut size, the paper size, and make minor adjustments to ensure we're getting the most cuts on the page, best utilizing the paper space that we have available to us. Obviously, minimizing waste is a huge way to ensure that you get a higher profit margin, and that's very important that we make that easy for you. We've now saved our template into the Intellicut library, and we need to now save it over to the Aerocut. But before we do that, we will need to ensure that we add any minor extra finishing capabilities. Sometimes you're simply going to be cutting a project. Most of the time, I think a lot of users are just cutting. But oftentimes, when you have a slitter cutter creaser, you also want to add creases and perps. In this case, we are going to be creasing this job. So I like to add my artwork first. All right. Let's see here. I like to add my artwork first. I go to the preview window, and now I draw my crease. So I go to preview, I right click, add crease. You can also add crease from on the top of the page here, up here, add crease. And you see I've drawn my crease visually onto the background artwork in the preview. So if I zoom in here, you'll see that crease is perfectly aligned, pretty close with where I want it to be based on the background artwork. I'm going to actually highlight them and use my arrow keys. I'm going to make just minor, 3 taps downward to get that perfectly aligned. I can also go to the configure menu and update the measurement if I know exactly how far from the top of the page that needs to be. So you can visually draw it, you can adjust your visual placement, and you can also add the measurement yourself if you know what that's going to be. You'll notice that as I add that crease, it also adds it to the remaining rows on the page. It automatically applies that crease to the subsequent rows that are available to us. So we only have to add the crease one time in Manuset mode. Awesome. Now we're going to send our settings over to the Aerocut. This is kind of the final step that all culminates based on the direct connection capabilities we set up earlier. We're going to click paper cuts. We're going to go to the Prime view. Before I send it to the Aerocut, I just like to point this Prime view out, as this is the actual settings that are being programmed into the machine. It makes it so that if you don't have your network connection, you can actually enter these in yourself by hand without having to do the calculations. Simply take a picture with your phone or print this out. But in our case, we're simply going to select send from Aerocut. It remembers the IP address that we put in earlier. It should always remember this. But I do recommend jotting this down in case this ever gets deleted. But it should be saved in your memory, and we simply press send. It remembers to save it under slot 30, which we selected previously. That's the barcode that's going to be created. And now we simply create our PDF. And from here on out, this is just like a preset template. If I go out, and let me just send this to the printer first, I'm getting ahead of myself. We created our PDF. We're going to send this over to the printer. It's now saved into the Aerocut's memory with the right barcode information. It's now printed, and it's ready to be cut and finished, even with the creasing information. Now, if I go back to my welcome menu, and I assume that I'm creating this job again for the first time for a different customer with new artwork, That job is at the bottom of my list. I can find that again by keyword search, and I can even get a preview, even though it's a custom job. I can get a preview of what that's going to look like. This is exactly what we just created. We have our 8 up, and we have our creases in the middle to create those tents. So even if I got this custom job again, I would never have to do those settings configuration. I would find it in the list, add my artwork, create my PDF, and send it over to the printer. Okay, I think that wraps up my end of the presentation today. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to now be cutting over to the video demonstration of this workflow. In order to do that, please go to your Uber conference screen, go to the right-hand corner of the screen, and there should be a box there. It may say screen share at this time. Go to the grid view. When you go to grid view, you should see one of the participants is called Aerocut Prime with video displaying. There are 3 dots in the bottom left corner near the microphone. Click on those 3 dots and select Pin Video. And then go to Dynamic View. So you're going to go to Grid View first. You're going to see the Aerocut Prime, pin their video, and go to Dynamic View. That should make your screen the entire extent of your screen, so you can see this full screen. And once you do that, you should be good to go. Let us know if you have any technical problems. There's a chat box in the bottom left corner of the screen. We have moderators who will be viewing that. But from that, I'm going to hand it off to Karen, who will be going through the process of demonstrating this on the video.
We're going to be demonstrating on an Aerocut Prime. As we mentioned earlier in the presentation, there are 2 versions of the Aerocut supported by the Intellicut software that's provided with a 1-year license with the device, the Aerocut Velocity and the Aerocut Prime. The difference in the 2 machines, the Prime is the higher end. It runs a little faster, has cross perfing and jump perfing, and a couple of other features. Nothing today will really show any difference between the 2 devices. The interface panel is a little bit different on the devices, but will provide the same functionality we're going to show today. As we kind of the theme of today's was taking a little deeper dive on installing the Aerocut. As Zach reviewed, this is a network connected device. Uniquely, the Aerocut offers the ability to be able to, or the Intellicut offers the ability to connect through your local area network. But the network connection is here behind this panel. And you can see the white cable. We have it connected. The black cable is the power cable. And so the Aerocut is just connected to our local area network. As Zach discussed, you use the Zata utility that's provided in your installation folder from the Aerocut Intellicut installation, and work with your network folks to reprogram the default network address to a network address on your system. Once you've done that, you'll be able to communicate as you saw in the demonstration. The couple of other things we wanted to show were just some little tips and tricks that we've learned working with the Aerocut. The first job that Zach had laid out was a business card on a 13 by 19 sheet. And we intentionally designed this artwork with a strong bleed edge with a change of color. And that was to demonstrate, as Zach showed in the slide, what often happens on digital print devices. Because of the way the positioning is calculated, there can be a rounding error that doesn't seem very obvious until you look very precisely. Because if you take a rounding error over the length of a 19-inch sheet, you'll have a very slight variation on what they call spread. It's really just that it's just a little bit wrong, and so by the 19th inch, it looks quite a bit wrong. What's great is the Aerocut is familiar with digital printers and how that all works, and they allow you to be able to adjust if you're seeing this issue. How do you know if you're seeing this issue? And we showed this in the slide because sometimes it's a little hard to see on the camera, but I'm going to try and show you. If you take your business cards and you stack them, I don't know if you'll see this here, you'll see a little zigzag, and then when the next stack started, another zigzag. I should have put the third stack on. So as each stack is coming down, it's just a little bit off, a little bit off, a little bit off, and you get this effect. If y'all work with printers, which you do, or if you're a printer yourself, often the very first thing they'll do once they see a slitter, cutter, creaser is take those stack of cards, bang them on the table, and then say, listen, there's no way I can put those in a box. It always seems kind of funny to me because obviously you're handing out cards individually, no one's going to notice, but of course they want to be precise, and it does look like you're not delivering a precise product if you look at that edging on the box. So to get to, and in fact, there's all kinds of fine-tuning capabilities. And if we look at the Aerocut screen, as I mentioned, the Prime does have a larger color screen than the Velocity, but the functionality will be the same. If we can zoom the camera in, let me just walk you through how you go about making adjustments. There's a little hidden menu. If you just click the tab, then you get all the menuing. In previous sessions, we've talked about the preset menu, the manu set menu, and we went in depth last week if you want to check out the video on the flex mode menu. So today we're going to talk about the manu speed menu. When you click this button, you get all kinds of different adjustments to the printer. If you're having feed issues because of the weight of the paper or the different issues, you can change how the vacuum works, how the air blows into the paper, which is great to separate the sheets as they feed, all kinds of things that you can adjust. The other interesting thing is here, the little adjust button. And this allows you to do very minute little adjustments from the default positions of the slitters, margin areas, barcode reading, the cut mark reading. So this is just a very fine-tuned adjustment. To be honest with you, I've been working with these machines for several years now. The only adjustment I've almost ever made is this one here. This is I know it looks funny, but if you think of the page feeding in, here, I'll just back up a little bit. You see the page feeding in this direction. This value here is determining the spread of along that 19-inch edge, along that long edge. So right now it's saying take the value and just multiply it by 1. If you're seeing that spread issue, you click here. The very typical adjustment is 1 point. You just start tiny, 0.001. You don't have to do much. Go ahead and test your sheet again. 0.001, 2, 3, till you get, or the opposite, 0.9999, depending on how you might have it. Usually you're increasing it because of a rounding error. So that's all there is to it. You'll be surprised that you'll then go from that stack that you'll see with the jagged to a perfectly straight stack. Let me just go ahead and reset that and return. Okay, great. Then we go back to the main menu. The second thing we wanted to talk about is another phenomenon that you'll see, which is, and I'm going to go ahead and I laid it out here so you could see it. Do you see on the edge of this washing machine, there's a little button. Actually, let's look at this one. This is how the page is supposed to cut, with a little bit of white space here. But you can see the first card actually cuts that button off, gets a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better as you go down the sheet. That's an indication that the page's print is cutting a little teeny tiny bit skewed. And so you do need to be very careful when you're loading the paper. First, even if you're cutting just a few sheets, it's a good idea to put a fairly large stack into the bin. When you click the set button, let's see, let me go ahead and hit the set button there. You'll see how it lowers this input tray. Wait till it's completely lowered. And as I mentioned, I have a tendency to cut 1 or 2 sheets when I'm just testing. And that's when I actually end up with a skew, because I have a little bit of trouble adjusting these metallic bars. I'm going to change paper size in a moment so we can see how you change this. But what you want to do is take your stack, and you can see I actually just added some blank sheets here because I wanted to have a little bit of a larger stack. Let me point out a few things that I think Zach had already mentioned, which is we have the barcode, which is going to bring in a standard 13 by 19 template for double cut business cards. We also have the read mark, and we've discussed both of those features and how you access them in previous sessions. And so you do want to be sure that you have the machine set to barcode change, which will change the settings of the device, and also that you have the cut mark on. Now, I'm going to step to the other side of the camera, excuse my back. And as I put this in, and of course you can't see this because it's inside of the machine, but there is a static corner. Be sure that your paper is lined perfectly with that corner. And then with a kind of bird's eye view, you want to make sure that this metallic panel is completely lined up. Don't have it too tight and don't have it too loose, because then you'll get misfeeds. You also want to make sure that this back panel, again, not too tight, not too loose, and perfectly aligned. And then it will just cut those cards exactly perfectly. Let me go ahead and remove the pages here so you can get a better view. And I'll remove this because half the fun is watching through the window here. I'm sorry, one more adjustment. On the other end of the machine, and now the Aerocut Prime comes with, and you actually see this in this sketch on our background, on our banners here, it comes with a conveyor belt. We've taken off the conveyor belt in this case because we want to use the special little card drop system. This system, as you'll see in a moment, can be aligned in a way that the cards just simply drop in. The next job will show you how to make adjustments to that. And of course, the conveyor belt you can see in the previous Light Rod Live Intellicut videos. So I'm going to go ahead and change the quantity here. I'm going to do a quantity of 5 so you can get 85. Well, that's a lot. Let me go ahead and just do 5. Oh, let's see here. I'm sorry, let me just, there we go. Just need to use my fingertip. Okay, and then we're gonna have the, as I mentioned, the barcode change on and the cut mark on, and we're just gonna click our start button. As the tray is now raised up, keep an eye on the infrared light beam that's going to read the barcode. If it needs to make adjustments to the slitters, it will then back the job out and then read it again and read it back in. See how it backed it out? And now it's all adjusted. And you can see the cards drop perfectly into the bin. In other videos, you can see where we've actually sorted the data. So it's one person's name in one bin, another in the other, so that you can immediately package up the cards for distribution to the client. You can see how quickly the machine runs when you just have one page after the next. And you can see that we get a very even cross. We also do not have an issue with that skew, that as we go through the cards, we have that little button on the washing machine evenly spaced down the card. So all of our adjustments work properly. And we have, again, we can separate, if you have different names, we can separate those into the stacks, and you're all set to go. So very efficient in perfectly cutting business cards. Great. Well, the second job we wanted to talk about was a ManuSet job. We intentionally printed that on a different size paper so we could show you how you go about adjusting the tray. This is on a 12 by 18 sheet paper. So again, I have a little bit of a stack here because it's easier to align. I'm going to remove the 13, oh, let me hit my set button to lower the tray. I'm going to remove my 13 by 19 paper, and I'm going to place the 12 by 18. Again, and it's hard to crawl into the machine to see this, but there is a back corner that is static, and I am aligning my stack perfectly to that corner. Now these magnets are quite stiff, and there's a reason for that, so that the paper doesn't move. So you can simply adjust it. And I give the old tap with my knuckles to kind of get that. And again, see how I'm leaving it a little bit, just a little bit of space. You don't want it too tight or it will have trouble feeding. And on this end, again, I kind of give it the tap, tap. And now I just double check. Now see, if the camera can go straight down, I can tell that I'm going to have a little bit of a skew. Do you see there's a little more room here than there is here? So this would be a skew. So that's why these big long magnets are so important. If I tap that guy in, now I make sure I'm in the back corner. I don't get any skew. That'll be perfect. I have the barcode job change on, and this was a custom template automatically programmed into the machine. I believe it was barcode 117. It will read the ManuSet job, automatically adjust, as well as put that crease in there. So it's really very efficient. The operator doesn't have to worry about any programming. And now we'll read the barcode and pick up that job that Zach downloaded from the Smart Layout Assistant. See it making its adjustments to the slitters, and now it's ready to go. And it just reads the next one. And off we go. If you do have sensitivity with the light beam, there can be a few reasons for that. One is just reflection from the lights, and we have a lot of lights on here for the filming. So you can, and we didn't want to do this for the camera, but you can place a piece of paper over the glass to make sure you're not getting a bad reflection off the glass and confusing the barcode reader. The second reason we have seen issues with the barcode reader is if the paper itself, we had a company who did wedding invitations, and they had a textured paper that was very, very reflected. It had all this sparkle in it. It was beautiful paper, but all of that sparkle was confusing the barcode reader. So our recommendation there is you can just simply manually call in the job and not use the barcode reader, which would work fine. So if you want to use that type of stock, very rare, I've only seen that one time, but just to be aware, what we do see much more often is if you have a lot of direct lighting on top of that beam, and again, just put a piece of paper over that and it will read just fine. Okay, well, I hope this deep dive into the Aerocut Prime and some of the great functions that you have to make sure you get a perfect and accurate cut every time has been helpful to you. We appreciate you joining our Light Rod Live sessions, and we look forward. I think we have one more session next week to end our series. Also, we have now posted videos, and we've created, upon user request, a YouTube channel so that you can access the playlist through the YouTube channel. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.